Hello friends, AmyR here with Prairie Paper and Ink, back with a couple more cards for my Valentine series, although these are definitely not Valentine cards. They can be for anything. But I was like, they'd make cute Valentine cards too, so I'm going to include them. Anywho, starting off with some really fun, pretty pink Posh goodies that I could not resist. Their Valentine release was fabulous, and I will have another video hopefully soon using some of the other items because I went a little nuts. Anyway, I wanted to use one of the layering stencil sets. And I've shown this Brutus Monroe stick and stamp mat in previous videos. And the little companion, it's the blending buddy it's called, that fits on it. And then more often than not, I would mention I couldn't find it for the longest time. That's why I wasn't using it in videos. So then I did, what smart people should do, and move some things around and put my stick and stamp mat right beside me on my desk. So maybe I'll use it more often when it's like right here, or I'll forget about it, whatever. Underneath it, that gray mat, I've also shown this in videos. It's a cut down piece of the Holtz Tonic Media Grip mat. Those I have right beside me as well. I like these. They just help to keep things from sliding all over my glass work surface. If you've never heard of the Media Grip mat, go on Tim Holtz's YouTube channel and look it up. He did a very in-depth video last year when they were first released. And they're handy little things. So, got my Media Grip mat. And that's just keeping my little stick and stamp mat from sliding everywhere. And then I have the first layer of this pretty pink Posh layered cherries stencil. And I'm just using some Spellbinders tape to hold it in place. The stick and stamp mat, the little blending buddy for it, it does have little notches that you can use to stick your stencils in. And that's great because it holds them in place. But I'm going to be moving this around because I did the first layer on what will be my card front. So that was just an A2 piece of smooth white cardstock. And I blended Simon's Watermelon Pawsitively saturated ink over it. And without re-inking my brush, like pressing it into the ink pad or anything, I put it onto what will be the inside of the card. And then just used what was left over on the stencil and the brush to blend on the inside. So I get a bit of a lighter version. So I'll have the pattern and everything, but it's not going to be as intense because I like on the inside it to be a little bit lighter to make it easier to write a message. And you could leave it at that. It would look great because these stencils, once everything's done, and they're just cute. But I wanted to add a little more depth, have a little more fun with it. So I put the stencil back on the card front, and this time I'm using Simon's Cherry Pawsitively saturated ink, apt, and a smaller blending brush, and just adding some definition. And the nice thing too is when you're blending with these inks, and it applies to a lot of inks, it doesn't have to be specifically these ones, but when you're blending with them, sometimes they'll look a little scratchy, like they're just like, okay, but let them dry, especially these ones. As they dry, everything smooths out and it looks perfect. Although, again, perfection's overrated, and I'll get to that in a second too. So I did the first layer on the card front with just the cherries, and I did those two colors, and I did the inside of the card. I removed the card base and wiped off that red ink just because I didn't want it mixing with the green ink when I'm going in with these other layers. Plus, I was doing more than one at a time because I showed in the pictures. I did a couple cards because, again, when I've got everything out, why not do more than one, So the next layer of the stencil is just the stems. Kept that simple. I just used a nice dark green ink. This was Simon's, I think, Field ink. Was that the color I used? Yes. And exact same thing. Blended on the card front. Then without re-inking my brush or anything, blended that onto the inside of the card. Went on to the third stencil, which is the leaves. And got that, centered. Wiped off my brush because this has that Field ink on it, like the dark green. Because now I'm using the lightest green, and that's Simon's Sprout ink. So I'm going to blend that over the leaves. And with the leaves, I'm doing the same thing I did with the cherries. So I'm going to do this light green first. Move it over to the inside of the card. And then just use what ink is sitting on there. I also used a piece of Post-it tape to mask where the score line is. So I'm not adding a bunch of ink past the score line. I did that with one of the card bases. I went a little bit past with one of the stems, but meh. again, perfection is overrated, man. So put the stencil back on the card front, and then I went in with the medium color of ink with this one. So this is Simon's Fairway ink and a smaller blending brush, and just kind of blended that from, you know, the center or the like inner edge of each leaf, and then repeated the process on the inside of the card with just the leftover bits of ink on the stencil and the brush. So now I've got this cute little cherry background for the card front and the inside of the card. And then I was like, yeah, splatter. So I'm just working on my glass work surface because I don't know why I keep doing this to myself. I do this every time. It's like I have the memory of a goldfish sometimes. I am like, oh, this will be fine because, you know, these inks like wipe up really quick and easy. Not going to be a big deal. I had splatter everywhere. It was use the splat box, Amy. And I do use it in a minute because I learned my lesson. It's everywhere. But anyway, I mushed the inks. I used the watermelon and the cherry ink. I just mushed them onto a work surface, added a bit of water, picked it up with a brush, and splattered these backgrounds. And my work surface, my clothes, everything in the vicinity. Like, yeah. Anyway, cleaned all that up, pulled out my splat box that is right beside me, and added gold splatter. Because I was like, you know, this needs a bit of gold. So I used my Gonzai Tombi Starry Colors, as always, and my fan brush. I prefer that as well. I don't know why I used the regular little paintbrush with the ink splatter. Like, there is a huge difference, honestly. The fan brush, just chef's kiss, man. Seriously. Like, mine is like literally getting worn out. I use it so much, but it just makes such better splatter, and it doesn't go everywhere like it does with a regular brush. So just hopefully you all learn from me, even though I don't learn from myself. Anyway, set those backgrounds aside. And then I used, of course, the coordinating Sweet Cherries stamp set from Pretty Pink Posh. I don't know what it is with cherry image. I just think they are so cute. So I stamped all the cherries from the set. Again, just onto Simon's 120 pound smooth white cardstock with intense black ink. This first little bit here, this is real time. I haven't sped it up yet because I do not color near as fast as I show in videos. I am not Superwoman. Sometimes I wish I was, but I'm not. These still didn't take that long to color because they're basic little images, you know, really, really cute. I think, honestly, to do all of these, it took me like 15 minutes, something like that. Like, not very long at all. I just did very simple coloring. I went darkest to lightest with my Copic markers, as is habit with me. If you're new to Copic markers, I recommend lightest to darkest. It gives you a little more control, that sort of a thing. But also, just do what works for you. I've had a lot of people comment and say they do darkest to lightest, and they quite enjoy that. And I was like, that's awesome. But again, do what works for you. These would look really cute, watercolored as well. I almost did that, but Copics won out. So I colored all the cherries, which is very basic, cute. These would look really nice too. I was like, ooh, if you did like a really rich, deep, you know, like deep, dark, like black cherries. Oh, you could almost make like nearly go sort of elegant rather than cutesy, you know, or just have fun with it. But anyway, colored the cherries. I used several different colors for the greens. Again, darkest to lightest. Just had fun with it. And I did debate whether or not to add glossy accents to all these cherries. That would look adorable. Honestly, it would look so cute. The only reason I didn't is I didn't have time. And then in the end, I kind of did. Those sorts of things. With me, that's generally the main reason why I don't use glossy accents very often, is because you need to let them dry. And I'm still, even after all these years and me telling y'all, you know, don't touch it, set it aside to dry, set it aside to dry, don't touch it. Do I listen to myself? No, I do not. So anyway, I added white gel pen highlights just to get them, you know, give them little highlights, no rhyme or reason, light source, anything like that. I just added little white gel pen highlights just to give them that little extra something. And then I used the coordinating wafer die set, taped them into place with just washi tape, die cut everything, set it aside. And then I'm going to do some hot foiling because I love it. You can 100% skip this. Pretty Pink Posh released a couple of Word hot foil plates, and there are little die sets that have the word in the outline. I'm actually going to use the outline to die cut this, but you could just use the wafer dies, you know, and die cut some gold cardstock, that sort of a thing. But I love hot foiling. I don't know. There's just it does really satisfy my inner magpie. There's something about shiny foil that, you know, you can't really replicate with anything else. And I enjoy the process. So I'm using this large Hugs hot foil and Spellbinders gold glimmer hot foil. That is my most used. Again, gold hot foil. I have gone through an entire roll of this now. I'm on my second. I nearly lost it. During all the chaos, I managed to throw an entire roll of gold hot foil into my recycling bin. So that was fun digging through to find that brand new roll. Because I was like, it was just here. I had it. What? How do you lose an entire roll? Yeah. When you're recycling things and it's in your hand and your brain is off somewhere else thinking about splatter or whatever. I don't even know. Anyway, found it. Crisis averted. Hot foiled these onto the cardstock. I've done many videos showing this. This is the Spellbinders Glimmer hot foil machine. I am finding it works really, really well to tape my foil and hot foil plates together, you know, to the cardstock, etc. And I just use that really narrow Spellbinders tape. Washi tape works great too. And following the instructions, same old, hot foil those sentiments onto the red cardstock. And then I die cut them with the outline from the large Hugs Shadow wafer die set. So set all that aside. And then I got out some vellum. And right here, right now, I was going to run this vellum through my little Xyron machine to put the adhesive on it before die cutting. And then I remembered in time that I don't like doing that. People have mentioned this many times because it's like, why do you die cut and then run it through the Xyron and then trace, etc.? It's a little bit of just a personal preference thing. I find that when you run something through the Xyron like so, and then die cut it, the pressure from the die cut machine combined with the backing paper, it makes the edges like kind of curl up a bit. And that bugs me. That is the only reason. However, if it is a finicky die, like if you're using little word dies, something intricate, run the cardstock, vellum, whatever, through your Xyron, then die cut it. Because the pressure from the die cutting will press down that release paper and everything, you know? And you won't have those like sticky, gross little goober edges that are just, that's the annoying thing about the Xyron. However, with simple shapes like this is just a little circle die. So I die cut all those circles from the vellum, ran those through, and then I can quickly trace around it before I remove the release paper from the Xyron release paper. That picks up all that little extra adhesive. It's quick and simple because it's a very simple shape. I press it down really well with my bone folder, and then this completely covers the back of this vellum with adhesive. And I generally only do this with vellum. I don't bother with other elements, regular cardstock, etc. But you totally can if you want. I have great success with, you know, my liquid adhesive, etc. But vellum is finicky. Adhesive shows through vellum unless you completely cover the back of it. And this is my favorite way of adding adhesive to vellum. Plus I wanted to layer 2 layers of vellum together to make it a little more opaque, but not quite, you know, I don't want to completely cover the pattern because that was my point. Like, this will just kind of draw focus to the little main images in the sentiment, but still enable, you know, to see through to the pattern. And by putting 2 layers of vellum, it just kind of adds to that a bit, because when you add adhesive completely over vellum, whether it's Xyron, liquid adhesive, whatever you're using, it makes vellum more transparent, which is, again, depending on the look you're going for and what you're doing, that's great. Sometimes I do just the 1 layer and it's fine. So again, it's just explaining, you know, the thoughts bouncing around in my skull. So I adhered those vellum circles to the card fronts. I die cut more layers from scraps of cardstock using the outline of the large Hugs wafer die. And I'm stacking those behind the ones that I had hot foiled, because that'll just give it a little bit more dimension so that it stands out a bit more. And I'm doing all of this just with my craft tacky glue. And then I'm going to adhere that into place onto that vellum circles that I had stacked. And off camera, I had also white heat embossed one of the little sentiments from that Sweet Cherry set. I just white heat embossed onto black cardstock and then trim that down. And it just says "You're the cherry" on top. And those I'm going to adhere with just a strip of foam tape. So got that into place, adhered a couple of those stamped and colored little cherries, and then stuck that little individual one like right on top of that sentiment because it just fit, you know, it just fit. So then on the inside of the cards that I had used the leftover ink and stenciled on, I'm going to stamp the other sentiment from that set that just says "You're so sweet." And I'm just going to stamp this multiple times with that intense black ink because more often than not, the main reason why I'm stamping things multiple times is my stamps are brand new. So it just takes a few times. Got to ink them up a few times, clean it a few times, and then they're conditioned and good to go and all that stuff. So I did that, adhered the last little remaining cherry, and then adhered the card fronts to the card bases. Once those are adhered into place, I'm going to pair these with some Schoolhouse Red envelopes from Simon Says Stamp. So everything's matchy-matchy, and that's going to finish off these cards. So I've got some stenciling and some splatter and some hot boiling and some Copic coloring and heat embossing and all the things thrown on these cards. It was loads of fun. So as always, I will have a link below the video to my blog post. I will have a supply list, picture links in the blog post, but also the supply list directly below the video in the description box. So you can check that below if you are interested. I will have a link to my 2023 Valentine playlist as well at the end of this video, so you can check those out if you've missed any of them. Thank you all so much for watching, thumbs upping, commenting, subscribe if you haven't, and I will see you all very soon in the next video. Bye!